Li Coon wanted to replicate the Survivor All-Stars experience of Boston Rob Mariano and Amber Burkich. And much in the same way it went down back in Season 8, Austin played the part of Boston Rob on Survivor 45, ending up as runner-up to his showman's partner. De Valladares' dominance down the stretch, including waiting until final tribal council to tell Austin right in front of the jury how she had lied to him about the Julie Alley immunity idol play, sealed the deal for her win. So how did Austin feel when Dee dropped that bombshell on him? We asked the runner-up that and much more when we spoke the morning after the finale. We also inquired as to whether Austin and Dee's romance has continued after they left the island, much like, well, you know who. Also check out our finale interviews with Dee, Jake, Katura, Julie, and host Jeff Probst. Austin Li Coon. I'm honored. Thank you so much. I mean, to be a winner pick of yours. No need to apologize. How were you feeling walking into that final tribal council in terms of your chances? I knew for me, it was an uphill battle. I knew that the jury kind of was leaning more going into the final tribal towards Dee. I could tell because whenever I'd walk in with my immunity necklace, the only person who smiled at me was Drew. So I knew I had an uphill battle, but I really felt if I could tell my story that I would and I could win. I felt like a lot of my moves kind of went under the radar. A lot of it happened earlier in the game, in the middle of the game that some people were forgetting about and a lot of people in the jury weren't really aware about. So I felt that if I could tell my story, then I could have a shot at beating anybody. So that was my thought going into Tribal. I know you were doing jury math in your head leading into Final Tribal, so which votes surprised you? Honestly, Kendra surprised me. Bruce, I was even surprised about a little bit. I knew that I had to earn every single vote that I got at Tribal Council. So the fact that I felt that I was able to flip a couple people, it was a pleasant surprise. I was a little surprised about Emily too. I thought we had a little bit of a thing going on with our alliance, but I did burn her a bit, so completely understood too. Could you sense it slipping away from you during Final Tribal? It was kind of the opposite. So Dee had that big moment being like, listen, I lied to you, and I actually told Julie. That happened earlier on in Tribal Council, and when that happened it was like, okay, shoot. Now I've got to turn to overdrive and really push towards it. And that's where a lot of my arguments came that were shown earlier on in Tribal Council. So, for me, it felt the opposite. It was like, oh, shoot, early on, got the wind sucked out of me. And then afterward, it was like, okay, now I'm fighting for it back. And I thought I was able to claw my way out through a little bit more. Let's talk about Dee and that haymaker that she gave you because there are personal elements to that, and there are professional elements to that. As you're both trying to win $1 million, and it hits right in front of the jury. What's going through your mind when she drops that? Yeah, she drops that. And there was a little inkling of me going in that she did tell Julie. But I was kind of trying to convince myself like, no, that didn't happen. That can't have happened. Because in my mind, I obviously told Dee, so it was in my best interest that she didn't tell Julie. I knew people would then put the blame on me for that happening. So I kind of convinced myself that she didn't tell Julie. So when she said that, I guess what I was thinking first was like, dang, all right, props to her. That was sick. I look like a fool a little bit right now. But I reeled it in, and I was sort of like, okay, listen. The main point for me voting Julie at that point wasn't necessarily to get Julie out, but it was to try to flush the idol. And, ultimately, that is what happened in my mind. I had Drew and Dee as my first layer of insulation, and outside of that, I had Emily and Julie, and I kind of weighed them similarly in terms of allies at that point in the game. So to me, it was like, okay, I knew either Emily was going home or Julie was going home, but what was most important was that I made sure that both Dee and Drew were still going to trust me 100%. So that's ultimately why I told Dee about it. That's kind of what I was thinking, so I kind of explained that to the jury. But yeah, it was a little bit of a sucker punch. How does this game play out differently if you do not tell Dee about the Julie vote? Yeah, so that's interesting. It's something I've definitely thought about a lot. If I did not tell Dee about the Julie vote, then I think Drew and Emily get put in a much better position. It helps their games more than it helps my games. It would give them a lot of the power. To Drew, he'd become the most insulated person at that point of the game, having Emily and me as his number ones. And then Dee would lose a lot of trust in me. She probably would still want to work with me, but that was kind of unclear. So I was worried about losing my positioning in the game. If I were to give that move to Drew and to Emily, I don't know what would have happened. That's a big what if. Probably Dee would come back and be willing to work with me again and forgive me similar to how I forgave her. But I felt like at Final 7, it was still a point early enough in the game where I needed both Drew and Dee to make sure that I could get to the end. As soon as you saw it was the Michelle Fitzgerald special there on the first immunity challenge, did you know you were going to kick that tower puzzle down if you won? 100%. And I think anyone else would have too. We all saw that when Jeff was walking us through the challenge, and we saw we were doing the Michelle puzzle. We were like, this is incredible. This is as iconic as the Survivor auction, and if you win this, you have to kick it down, or else did you actually win this challenge? I don't think so. You said Jake was really struggling with making fire when he was practicing. Was that 100% true, or were you just trying to get Dee to put you in? Half/half? I felt like Jake. He was okay. I mean, he wasn't very good at maintaining the fire. He could start the flame pretty well, but maintaining it, he didn't really understand how to start the base. The reason why I felt really comfortable and got really good at fires, I was studying how Bruce did it. Bruce was the master fire maker, and he would make every single fire, I'm sure, at Bello, and he did it at Tequaca. So Jake never really needed to make fires. And he was struggling. Without me going in there, I think it would have been a big toss-up because Katurah was getting flames going when she was practicing. And it was a worry that Jake was going to lose. So who knows what would have happened? He might have pulled through still, but it could have been much different. It would have taken longer, I think.